Hey guys, this is Tim Ashe, President of the Vermont State Senate. It is Tuesday, May 19th, here with my daily update on Vermont's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And I'm going to have a fairly brief update tonight to let you know that tomorrow I'll be focusing the entirety of the update on the details of the governor's proposed use of some of the federal relief funds we've received. I've mentioned in the past that we received literally two checks totaling a grand total of $1.25 billion from the federal government, but that funding doesn't allow us to just do anything we want with it, and it doesn't allow us to, at this time, plug different holes in our state government budget that fund things like transportation or education or healthcare, things like that. So the uses are fairly limited. It has to be directly related to expenses that COVID created, not losses, but expenses. There is one exception to that, which is that the money from the federal government can be used to help give grants to businesses for expenses incurred for which they could not possibly come up with revenues to pay for them. For instance, if you're a store that was ordered to close by the governor, you still had to pay your light bills, you still had to pay the rent, pay your mortgage, whatever. And there are allowances in the federal rules to use money to help support those kinds of businesses. So tomorrow I'm going to be spending the entirety of my update walking through the governor's first draft, if you will, of our recovery efforts. That proposal will probably include about $400 million of spending from the federal funds, largely designed to make sure that our economy doesn't fall into an even greater state of damage, and that we preserve as many of the small businesses as possible that we still will want to see on the other side of this. Some of that money is going to be in the form of grants. Some will be in the form of loans. Much of it will be for industries that have taken the worst brunt of this economic storm, although many have. And will really be designed to make sure we don't have entire sectors shuttered for the medium term. So that's what I'm going to be walking through for most of tomorrow. Second update, there's been a lot of discussion about the issue of masks and whether customers in places of public accommodation should be required to wear them. The governor has taken the approach that it should be voluntary, that the employees should be required to wear masks, but those who enter, whether it's a bank or a store or wherever, it should be encouraged but not required. And so Burlington last night voted to make it mandatory. I believe it was a 10-1 vote, if I'm not mistaken. And I was asked today by reporters, would the legislature be considering that? And what I said is the legislature has to have a discussion about it and make a decision. What makes it a little hard, and I'll give you a little insight into the difficulty sometimes of being in a legislative leadership position, is that we have been following the advice of the Commissioner of Health every step of the way. When he's ordered something to be closed, we've supported that. When he ordered that there be social distancing, whenever there are people together, we've said, okay. Gathering limitations, whether it was 50 or 25 or 10, we've supported each step. Right now, the commissioner does not appear to be encouraging, or for whatever reason, the commissioner isn't ordering that people who are customers wear masks when they go into stores and places like that. So the legislature, it's tricky to start second-guessing the public health experts at this point, just because we may have a difference of opinion about one. But because this is a serious issue, we'll be having discussions about it and see whether there's legislative interest in taking action, or maybe even trying to work with the governor to see if he'll revise his directives based on the frequency with which people are showing up with or without masks under the current rules. So that's something I would say stay tuned for. Today, the Senate met for about 2 hours, took up a number of pieces of legislation. We are realizing that while the legislative session has effectively a It's not a clear end date, although we think sometime in late August is when the session will officially end. There are a number of bills that we do have to make sure we advance through the process, even though they're not directly related to the crisis. So while we've had this little lull in COVID-19 legislation, waiting for the recovery ideas to start coming forward, we are taking the time to do some bills that are important. One of them, just as a small example, is moving forward with what I would for shorthand say is a first responder wellness commission to explore ways that we can better support first responders who often come upon very painful, horrific accidents, are often the ones who arrive when there is a death, whether it's natural or not, and making sure that we're doing everything we can to make those professions viable and to support people who experience these kinds of traumatic moments. Many people historically have thought, oh, these are, tough guys and gals who do these jobs. It'd be a sign of weakness if they couldn't take what comes with the territory. And I think we know that's not true. People, whether they're firefighters, ambulance crew, police officers, or military service people, they're people too. And so making sure that we're providing them the support they need is really critical. All of those professions I just listed right now are having trouble recruiting new people. And I think one of the strategies we have to bring to bear is making it the most well-supported position so that both the physical and mental health well-being of people who perform those jobs is taken care of. So that's one example. Another, we took action on extending a permitting system for telecommunications facilities. This is particularly important because one of the things we hope to do as part of our recovery efforts is to deploy more equipment necessary for broadband for communities that do not have adequate broadband. And the system of allowing the construction of those facilities to occur depends upon a predictable but fair process. And so today we took the first step towards enacting a longer-term vision for permitting for telecommunications facilities. So that's some of the types of legislation we've been taking up and will continue to do in the coming days. I would encourage you, if you've never watched a Senate proceeding, it will not be quite the same as if you were in the State House, but tomorrow at 1 o'clock, if you go to the Legislature's website, you'll see right on the homepage a link to the Vermont Senate's proceedings. It will take you to a page where you'll watch it live on YouTube. Thursday we'll also be meeting at 1 o'clock live on YouTube, and then at 11:30 on Friday. So you'll really get an insight into the people making the laws, at least on the Senate side of the legislature, and hopefully we'll even encourage some of you to think about running yourselves, whether soon or in the long term. So I'm going to sign off for now, and tomorrow I'll probably crush you with detail about the governor's first draft of a recovery plan, and hopefully you'll tune in. If you're a small business owner in particular, it will be important for you to hear the details that are being contemplated. Then it will come to the legislature, and we will work with the governor to try to figure out whether we want to change some of the ideas that he's put on the table or work with what he's got, add new things to the list, the normal legislative process, but one that we'll have to do fairly quickly so that we can actually start the process of recovery. And with that, I'm going to sign off and say, hope you continue to take good precautionary measures and stay vigilant. We had 4 more positive tests today in Vermont, so while it can be tempting to think that things have come to a conclusion, they have not. So we have to be vigilant, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 5:30.